First of all, let's get to know what is science, technology, modernization, and communication. So science is a knowledge or study about the natural world based on fact learned through experiment and observation, while technology is the application of scientific knowledge to the practical aims of human life, or as is it sometimes phrased, to the change and the manipulation of the human environment. While we are defining science and technology, what is the relationship between them? So based on Isha Srivastava, in his blog state that basically the relationship between science and technology is literally the application of science, and it is impossible to separate these two elements. Next, what is the modernization? Based on the research paper that we review, there are a lot of definitions of modernization. One of them is defining modernization in relation to communication as to be used in spreading the message of modernity and transferring the economic and political model of the West to the newly independent countries of the South. While other articles state that in other social science, modernization was the dominant paradigm in development in the late 1950 and 1960. There is also one time that modernization was proposed as synonymous with development, even though in reality there is a difference between them. And finally, what is communication? Communication is the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. As we all know that communication is very important in our daily life. Science, technology, and modernization really help the development of communication and allow the interaction between individuals or groups to become more easy.
So now, I want to share the modernization of communication through the flow of time. So the very first means of communication was of course by voice, but this type of communication is limited to only when we are with or close to the person physically. There are several types of languages that were used in ancient times. Here's a list of known ancient languages such as Tamil, the oldest living language of the world, Sanskrit, world's oldest language, Egyptian, Hebrew, Greek, Basque, and Lithuanian, and many more, which are all ancient languages used. So communication didn't stop there. The alphabet was invented around 1600 BC and was used in writing, and it was first invented in Israel and Lebanon in 1500 BC, in China around 1200 BC, and in Iraq and Egypt around 3200 BC. So to deliver a message over long distances, a writing and postal system of relay with horses was implemented. The messages were often written on papyrus or parchment, but in 200 BC, China had already had the knowledge of paper making, which will then spread to the Arabs and then Europe. And now let's move on to the form of communication between 1500 BC to 1800 BC. The next invention is printing. The Chinese invented printing with blocks in the 6th century AD, and the first known printed book was the Diamond Sutra of 686. While in Europe in the mid-15th century, Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, which made books much cheaper and allowed newspaper to be invented. Then William Caxton introduced the printing press into England in 1476, which allowed the first newspapers to be printed in the 17th century. This type of communication allows the spread of information through the general public. The postal system has also been developed. European monarchs set up postal services to carry their messages. For example, in France, Louis VI founded one in 1477, and in England, Henry VIII created the Royal Mail in 1512. In 1635, to raise money, Charles I allowed private citizens to send messages by the Royal Mail for a fee. Another notable invention here is the pencil, which is invented in 1564. Next, we move on to communication in the 19th century. In the early 19th century, the recipient of the letter had to pay for the postage, not the sender. Then in 1840, Rowland Hill invented the penny post, which from then on the sender of the letter will be paid. There is also cheap mail, which has made it much easier for people to keep in touch with their loved ones who live a long way off. In 1874, the Universal Postal Union was formed to coordinate with postal services in different countries. Carbon paper was also invented in 1806. Then telegraph was invented in 1837 and a cable was laid across the channel in 1850, and after 1866, it was possible to send messages across the Atlantic Ocean. Meanwhile, the first fax machine was invented in 1843, and then the first telephone was invented in 1876 by Alexander Graham Bell. Meanwhile, the first successful typewriter went on sale in 1874. A notable invention here is that there are also disabled people who are not able to read. So in 1829, Louis Braille invented an embossed typeface for the blind, and in 1837, Isaac Pitman invented shorthand. Next, the 20th century, communication continued to improve in the 20th century. Radio systems started to be invented and used to send radio messages. In 1901, Marconi sent a radio message across the Atlantic. Then television was invented in 1925 by John Wildeberg. Dissemination of TV was suspended in Britain during World War II, but it began again in 1946. By 1964, the figure had reached 90% and TV had become the main form of communication and entertainment. In Britain, telephones became common in people's homes in the 1970s, and now in the 21st century, a lot more inventions in the communication field have been invented that we are familiar with, such as computers, laptops, smartphones, tablets, and also a lot of social media platforms that allows communication between groups of people.
How is communication related to science, technology, and modernization? This relativity can be explained with two aspects. So what are the aspects? The first aspect is disseminating information. As we can see nowadays, the mass media is developing rapidly. The example for the mass media are newspaper, radio, television, and cinema. This development have proven the modernization of communication to disseminate information. For instance, people nowadays can just simply read newspaper on their smartphone. Some people with a medical background also use social media to share information to the public. This is undeniably easier for the public to gain knowledge and information without disrupting their daily routines. The second aspect is communication among scientists. With the existence of technology, scientists are able to spread scientific knowledge to society and interact with other scientists from other parts of the world. This undoubtedly is an easier source for the scientists to gain new knowledge. As an example, new generation scientists can refer to the work published by older generation of scientists in India, discoveries of science theory, and to prove their hypothesis. Every information is under our fingertips. Now, let's talk about the importance of modernization in communication. The development of communication ensures fluency in working. Email can be used by users in sharing information because it has the ability to receive timely and immediate feedback. This type of modernization in communication is commonly used by employees to share information about meeting, customer feedback, and others. Nowadays, it is commonly used in educational institutions for sharing educational material. Other than that, people can have endless communication with whoever they want in the world. Smartphones are the most successful and known in science, technology, and modernization in communication. It allows users to communicate through applications such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram, and email. The creation of smartphones has made our daily life easier and convenient because smartphones can practically do many things to help us with our work. With the development of communication, we can endlessly share information. Website is one of the platforms that work to share information to the public. Many companies invented websites to easily spread their product information. For example, citizens don't have to buy physical newspaper and just read the news online, as we've mentioned before.
So now, let's move on to the benefits of modernization in communication. Firstly, modernization in communication can save a lot of time and cost. How is it possible? Like say for example, a situation of a person who wants to send messages to his friends. This person will be using a postal system which requires him to write the letter and walk to the postal center just to make sure the message can be delivered to his friends. However, if we take this person to the 21st century, the message will be delivered in the blink of an eye as he uses messaging apps. So, doesn't it save more time and cost spent by this particular person? The answer is yes. Next, it is proven to be instantaneous and efficient. But we may wonder in what aspects this can be truly proven. Like I mentioned earlier, message can be delivered as fast as lightning. As long as we have a stable internet connection, the message that we want to deliver will be recognized instantaneously by devices, or more specifically by the messaging apps, which then delivered gracefully to the targeted person. This fast reaction shows how really efficient is the modernized communication. Thirdly, modernized communication opens more business opportunities. We all have smartphones, but there are numerous things that differentiate our smartphones like brand, price, software, and even storage. Some may argue and claim how amazing their smartphones can be, and actually, it's all about the features that contribute to the value of the smartphones. People nowadays tend to search for smartphones that has many new features. As long as these people exist, smartphones manufacturing company will continue to hire new ideas to be fit in to produce new model of smartphones. These efforts then can provide more business opportunities to people nowadays. Fourth, wide coverage and borderless. There is a famous quote which says information is at our fingertips. It means information can be accessed through the action of typing, whether it's on a computer or a smartphone. As easy as it is heard, the information can be obtained from every corner of the world. The limitation is just the curiosity in ourselves. Fifth, it can result in the creation of new and exciting jobs. The development of technology reveals more knowledge to be discovered and more fields to be explored. Simultaneously, it can create new and exciting jobs such as software programmers that are responsible for development of computer software. Last but not least, modernization in communication causes the performance of the education sector to be improved. We cannot deny there is widespread use of technology in the educational sector, allowing learning materials to be delivered and accessed easily. Students can refer to notes provided by their teachers, lecturers, and others. As for now, our group uses a computer to record this presentation, and we are doing our presentation assignment later and will be evaluated by the lecturer. So the point here is not only the learning process become much easier, the students itself will be more interested to learn when modernized communication is applied. That's all for now from us. Thank you.